Here with the beautiful Patricia Barilla. Patricia, how are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm really, really great. I'm really excited to hear your presentation and hear about Organize. I'll come on a little bit and ask Patricia questions, but Patricia, take it away.
Okay. Well, a lot of people build a business based on something that they love, and I didn't do that. I built a business based on something that I absolutely hate. There is nothing I would rather do less than inventory. I honestly would rather do a trunk show in Dallas outside in 200-degree heat than count frames. I think it is one of the most painful pieces of what we do as professionals from every aspect, from your sales rep driving around on the road to your manufacturers who are counting products when they come back as a return, to your day-to-day opticians who are spending thousands of hours counting products and labeling them. It can be very painful for just about everybody involved. And when I started working as a sales rep, I'd been an optician for 17 years, and it was one of the worst parts of my day was dealing with inventory. And it was something that I really didn't feel like I had control over. As an optician working with my vendors, they would come in and they would say things like, oh, this frame's only been here 3 months. Well, I knew it had been sitting there a year, and there was no way for me to really have that argument or even broach that discussion because I didn't have any data. I just knew I'd been staring at it every day for a year. And that made me feel really out of control in my business. And for someone like me who absolutely hates to feel out of control, it was really a painful thing. So I started very early on counting products and keeping spreadsheets and just being manic about it. And it was painful. And then when I got on the road and I started working as a rep, I noticed that it wasn't just painful for me, it was painful for everybody. Across the board, everybody that I work with is either manually doing inventory because their practice management software treats it like an afterthought, or they're not doing inventory at all. And either way, they're wasting countless man hours, and the the pain that goes into it is really awful for me. So rather than build a business on something that I love, I built it on something that I hate to help the people that I love. I've been in private practice now for 27 years, and I've been independent for most of my career. And I really have a passion for what it is that we do on a personal level. When I met my husband, he he has keratoconus. And when I met him in our early 20s, it was a sentence for blindness for him. There wasn't all the technology that we have now, and it was really difficult for me to, understand what that meant for us going forward. And I used every resource within my network to really try to help him. And I found a doctor who didn't know us, and we had no connection, and he had no reason to help us. And he made a phone call and tried to get him into a clinical trial. And it was a combination of independent doctors from around Southern California who worked together. They weren't afraid to say that they didn't understand what was going on with him, or to try new technology and experiment with new things. And they really pulled together to change the course of this man's life. He now has 20/20 vision, best corrected, thanks to Dr. Sfandiari, Dr. Parikh, and Dr. Walton, who all work together on him. And it changed the course of his life. And that's really the power of independent optometry, in my opinion, is this devotion to whether or not you can see rather than the bottom line, which you don't find in corporate America. At least I haven't. And so these people, they really have a special place in my heart. And when, a few years ago in 2018, I got a phone call from a friend of mine, and she said, her husband had recently passed, and Dr. Garza was just the best of us. He really was. There was no way for her to maintain that practice because she wasn't a doctor, and she had to sell it. And when she started looking into the financials to get ready for that sale, she was devastated because she was hemorrhaging money into the inventory, but she had no way to quantify it or to even stop the bleeding. And so she called me, one of her reps, and we had a really close relationship, just something that I think is not as common as it used to be, that dynamic of friendship between the rep and the practice. And she asked me for help. And so, I'm not a software architect. I had no background in software, but I wanted to help as much as I could. So I went in search of a product that would be able to, manage her practice and get her ready for the sale. And I looked high and low. And without reinvesting tens of thousands of dollars into a total software update, which, even at that point, the inventory is lackluster, to say the best. And she was desperate. So I did whatever I could, which was basically build her a digital book of spreadsheets. And I brought it to her practice, and her staff, to my shock, adopted it very quickly. They were on board with helping in every way that they could, because like I said, these people were truly an amazing pair. And so we built these spreadsheets, we put them together, we worked collectively to get this business ready, and we were successful at that as a team. But it was difficult because she was in Los Angeles and I was in San Diego, and I still had a full-time job. So doing this, and being there physically was very, very complicated for me. And she wasn't, we didn't have the tools then that we do now with Zoom and things of that would allow us to connect remotely. So, that same year I was volunteering with the San Diego Pride volunteer community, and I met this incredible woman, Amy Brown, who is a software architect with a specialty in data analysis. And she saw my spreadsheets. We went to a trade show together to just kind of see what the response and if there was a need for this. I was seeing it in my day-to-day life. It was something that I had needed. But we wanted to know, what was the general response from the public and from the industry. And I'm not kidding when I tell you that a woman fell into my arms crying. This was such a pain point for her, and nobody was talking about it because it's very boring. Nobody wants to deal with inventory. It's not the sexy part of what we do. It's boring and it's painful. Her practice was losing money. They didn't know what to do about it. And this was a part of her day that consumed so much of her energy, which could have been better spent. And so she insisted that we keep moving forward. And Amy and I decided to partner then. And, 6 years later, we built a product that is independent of practice management software. It is cost effective, and it manages just the inventory. That's all it does. We don't want to get into practice management. We don't want to touch that space because I believe that's really done well. This is a space that is not a focus for anybody. And so we did that. And then throughout the course of my day-to-day, as we were building, I'm still on the road, and it's very difficult for me to reach certain places. If you're in Palm Springs, that can be difficult for me to get to. If you're in, the outskirts of Oregon, that's very difficult for me to reach. And so it became necessary for us to build out this piece of the program that would allow us to do purchasing remotely, so that we still had that connection with the office and we were still managing product day to day, but we were able to do that remotely. And then, a few weeks ago, I got a Facebook call on a Sunday morning from someone I had never met. And that was Charlie Nichols. And I honestly, as soon as she started talking Metaverse and I didn't know what she was saying, I was very confused. I didn't want to be rude, so I listened to her. And after a while, we started to talk about the things that were difficult for us, the things that were painful, the struggles that we had. And I learned very quickly that she was on the same page as me and that her motives were the same as mine. And our ambition was to really support the industry through technology so that they could continue to thrive in their businesses without having to invest the same type of resources that are currently required to stay competitive with big box retailers. And that's where we're at today.
I figured that was my cue.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Patricia, I got to be honest with you. Listening to your story, I can really relate. A lot of people know my story. I was a rep. I mean, let's face it. And sometimes I'm even afraid to say that. Isn't that a shame that I'm afraid to say that? Like I was a rep. Like
It is a
that's
dirty
not
word.
it,
It's a dirty word
right?
in our industry. It's got a
That's a
very
good
negative
thing. That's a good
connotation.
thing. I'm somebody who filled in a gap. I was like an extra employee, and that wasn't part of my job, right? So there's different types of reps, right? There's reps that do their job exactly the way they're told or not, right? But then there's reps that go above and beyond. Now, those are usually the high performers because one thing I found that made me different, and it's funny because when I worked at my company, and my company was OptiSource when I started my career, I'll never forget the first thing I did that pissed off my peers. Seriously, really pissed off my peers. I went to my boss and I said, I don't feel like I can really empathize with these people because they're talking about like diopters and seg heights, and I'm selling them tools and things to do this, but I don't even understand what they're talking about. And they're asking me real questions. And I don't want to just read the description in your catalog. Like I really want to understand what we're talking about. And I don't even know where to begin. I was Googling, this is going back a long time ago. This is like early 2000s, right? I was Googling like different things about like optician learning or anything. I don't even remember what keywords I was using, but there was really nothing. There was nothing that I could search. And this was early stages of the internet. It wasn't nearly as good as it is now. So he listened to me, and he set up an optician's boot camp, and he got the
Nice.
workbook from one of his buddies, and they came in every morning before work started, and we got trained about diopters. We had worksheets, we had like tests, and I loved it. I was like there every time at the front of the office, like listening, and everybody else was like, ugh, really, Charlene? You're going to make us do this extra work? And I'm like, but look at where I am today, and look at where I was my whole career. I was their top rep for a really long time. I made a really good living for myself, but I enjoyed what I did. And my clients really respected me for it. I was the go-to girl. That was my nickname because they knew no matter what they needed, even if I didn't sell it, even if I didn't make commission on it, it did not
You would
freaking
find it.
matter. I would find it. Like I was like a dog with a bone. I'm like, what? You need that stupid little stocking to go on your edger so you can filter out the stuff. I don't know what the hell that is, but I'll find it. They're called filter socks, right? These are not easy things. Like you don't understand. The biggest labs in the country struggled finding simple little things that if they didn't have them, they couldn't run their business. Like you can't get bushings to fix a silhouette rimless bushing. That patient doesn't have glasses. These
Yeah.
aren't small things.
No,
And,
and that's ultimately what we do is we work
yeah,
together to help our community improve their lives through vision. And with the story about my husband, it's so obvious to me how much of a difference your visual acuity makes in your life. His life was not the same as it is now before these doctors took it upon themselves. And we talk about reps and that being a dirty word, and you walk, I honestly, it's a joke when I walk into my offices now. It's like, I'm not a sales rep. I just dress like one. I'm an optician. I swear, please don't hurt me. And they laugh. But when I started my career, my first practice I managed, I was 19 years old. Honestly, he was fresh out of optometry school. Dr. Shaw and I worked day in and day out, and I think we knew 4 things total between the two of us. We were so young and we worked so hard. And we was a rep. It was Frank Gomez, who was at the time with Maui Jim, who came in and saw us struggling. And instead of just pushing product on us, which he very much could have, or walking out and saying, "This is a dumpster fire. I'm out. Call me in 6 years when you guys get it together." He didn't. He came back and he rolled up his sleeves and he took the time to educate me and to teach me all of the things, like you said, about optics that I didn't know, things about how the business itself works that I didn't know, the stopgaps in hemorrhaging money that I didn't know, how to deal with a vendor, how to deal with inventory. Those were things that I would probably, have learned the hard way if Frank hadn't taken the time to stop and really educate me. And for that reason, he wasn't just somebody that I bought frames from. He is still answering ridiculous questions 27 years later.
You just made me realize something that I can't believe in 4.5 years of running my vision show and now the optical metaverse that I never realized. When you go to a regular trade show, you never see a panel of reps ever. You
No.
never see a panel where it's like, hey, come learn what a day in the life of a rep is and learn how you can, leverage what they know, or like even just for reps to meet other reps to like, are you listening? Vision Expo. We need
Well,
one of these sessions. Like,
I
I just
very
thought about that. What a
distinctly
missed
remember because
opportunity.
I went to Vision Expo as a buyer for, about a decade. And my tag said buyer when I walked in the show, and I didn't know what that meant. I didn't even know there were different types of tags or the colors or any of those things. So I'm walking in and people are so nice to me. They're handing me champagne, inviting me to parties. The first year I went with an exhibitor tag, it was like I had leprosy. No one would talk to me. No
Now,
one.
let me
Other reps, not customers, nobody. I was like, I couldn't even get directions to the bathroom. Nobody talked to me. To this
so
day, I actually hide my badge in my pocket. I don't tell anybody I'm an exhibitor.
So here's an interesting story. And it was, again, doing my vision show. You get to collect feedback, right? Like one of the things Jason Kirk said early on is, what I love about this is that I could pop in when I want to because he's Jason Kirk. Everyone knows who he is. Tom Davies. Everyone knows who they are. They're like, this is great. I get to have like an anonymous experience and I could float around and see what's up and watch anonymously without somebody coming up next to me and be like, how are you? How's everything? Let's talk about business. Like sometimes they don't want to do that. They just want to like enjoy that what they want to enjoy. And at the more known you get in the industry, or if you have a buyer's badge, it's very hard to navigate anywhere in the event because it's our job to, network and communicate. But sometimes you want to remove yourself from that and just experience whatever you're experiencing. But I'll tell you the biggest success story I feel we've had, actually two to this day. And I'll show you the full circle loop on this. Dr. Sandra Payton, who I hope comes back today, she stopped in at our table very early on when we started, and she said, I work for corporate optometry. So she worked for Walmart or wherever it was. And every time she would go to a booth, the first thing they would ask her is, are you a buyer? And if she said no, then that would be the end of it. They'd go on to somebody else. And she said, I want to learn about couture eyewear because I want to go and try and get a job with a couture optical shop. But I don't want to go into a couture optical shop and be pigeonholed as somebody who only works at corporate. So she was trying to go to the one of these events to learn. And now she's working at a couture optical shop. She's working with Kazoku, with Michael Nichols, who has this gorgeous, he's also a vendor of ours, but he runs this gorgeous optical shop in Boston. And she's living her dream life because she was able to learn the product, get a job in a place that she wanted. And there's a lot. I'm wondering how many optometrists that are working in corporate, want to work at a corporate optical shop, but they can't because they know better. They're not going to go into a shop and be like, oh, I want to work here and deal with Jacques Marimage and, Tom Davies and, Fassa Foss and Woo. And they're like, okay, where do you work now? Walmart. No. Talk about what you've seen in that segregation, because I think it's time for us to stop that. I mean, this show was definitely designed to stop that, but I think beyond the boundaries of this show, we just need to decide to stop that.
I think that one of the cool things that I didn't expect coming into this show was exactly that, is that you don't really know, like, unless, like my tag, it said speaker, organized founder, it says that. But like I sat down at a table yesterday with somebody whose name was Selena Kyle. And I was like, for those of you who don't know, if you're not a big giant nerd, that is Catwoman's real name. And I was like, I don't know who this comic book nerd
I was
is.
wondering why it sounded familiar.
I was like, I don't know who this comic book nerd is, but I need to sit here and I need to talk. I've never had a chance to talk to Catwoman. This is new. And it turned out to be Dr. Arena. And we had, a very casual conversation.
Arena, you're too much.
Yeah. And I said, I think we might have a lot in common. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, there's a stack of comic books in your house too, somewhere. And we ended up being able to have this very casual conversation, which I think that if we had met, at an expo, that would have been a different dynamic. And there was another table where I was at where somebody is a mobile optician, and they're working in a remote part of the world. And there was another person who was there who was a doctor, and another person there. And it was like these conversations about how can we help the community. That was the whole focus of, it was a bit about what do you do, and your focus is how can I help, and then my focus is how can I help you.
Mm-hmm.
And that conversation would not have happened at Vision Expo. It would have been, how can
There's
you
just
help
not enough
me?
time, right? There's not
Yeah.
enough time, and
And there's so much
we
pressure because Expo is so expensive. There, you have to make money in order to justify you being there, where in this experience there is no pressure to do that. The pressure is to just, let's meet people and see how we can collaborate and how we can work together and how we can best serve our community in what we do.
And I got to tell you, as an attendee, and I'm not a highfalutin, I don't go to like clubs and bars and spend lots of money. I don't really do that. And it cost me easily, not including airfare, about $2,000 to go to a show for a weekend, not as a vendor, as just an attendee. So, for early startup brands, and this is one of the main reasons we've continued doing this show. It didn't start out that we were going to make this a thing. It was like a marketing opportunity in the beginning for me and my brand, because I couldn't find any other way to bring some of the innovations that I was developing to market. But it turned into a show because it turned out there was a lot of other people that just needed more time. They needed more time together. Doesn't mean, please just know. And we're here to talk about revolutionary inventory management for startup optical shops. And forgive me for not being as clear and succinct today as I've been the last 2 days. It's been a long weekend, but that is one of the ways that we help to do that during these types of events, because you really need to be able to get a lot more information. You could definitely go to a physical event, set appointments, make your purchases, maybe learn a lot about these products, but you're going to miss a lot. I mean, I went to the last Vision Expo specifically looking for David Green for hours. And I would go and I would look, I'd bump into some friends, and then I'd give up, and then I'd come back later, because you're busy, you're running around, you've got things you have to get to, and if you can't find stuff, you miss it. I'm sure there's a lot of people who feel that way, and they want to get those connections. So if you want to build out your optical shop and really find the best tools, this is a great place to continue that journey. So it doesn't mean you can't go to the physical shows. You should. I've been going to them my whole life. What do you think now, Patricia, having done this show and seeing it up close? How does it connect to physical shows? How would you now use this and
You know,
connect
it's
it to your physical?
it's funny because I think that, the optical metaverse and Organize get a lot of the same feedback. As soon as people find out what I'm doing, they're like, well, so are you trying to get rid of reps? No. I'm never going to get rid of the personal interaction, that necessity of human beings to connect in real space. What I'm trying to do is make it more efficient. I'm trying to make it so that
I
you
love
don't
that
have
word.
to drive 6 hours for an even exchange. There's pressure on your buyer to buy. There's pressure on you to sell. I'm trying to alleviate the time it takes you to do that and to make that interaction as pleasant as possible so that you can focus on that human connection rather than, the numbers of it. And I think that that's what we're doing here too. There's never going to be a replacement for the physical show. This is not in
Never.
No, this is not in exchange for, this is in addition to. We
Mhm.
have the ability to say, okay, well, we met at, the optical metaverse, and I'm going to be at Expo, and which has actually happened. I'm going to be at Expo in a few months. Let's schedule some time to meet in real life. And, that doesn't have to be a high pressure situation anymore. It can just be, hey, it's really nice to see your face. Those glasses actually look really cool in real life. And that, I think, is what a lot of people don't really understand, is that we're not trying to replace Expo. We're just trying to add to it and make it so that we don't have those high pressure situations, and that things are more efficient when we do meet in real space, and they're more casual and they're more human.
Well, and we talk about meeting, meeting people, and the fact that we could talk to so many people, whether you're a rep that works by the phone or in person, you're probably speaking to more human beings in this industry than anybody else, right? The manufacturers don't get this feedback. You're on the front lines. You could filter it to them, but they probably don't know every single conversation you have. But I will tell you, it was my job every Vision Expo for 20 years before 2016 when I resigned. So from the late 90s, very, very end of the 90s, up until the like 2010s, it was my job to call every account I had thousands, and ask them, are you going to Vision Expo? And I got news for you. 90% of them said no.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That means that we're not really competing with Vision Expo. Love you guys, by the way. Love to work with you more. We're competing with nothing.
Yeah.
Most people don't go. Could you imagine, like, for those of you who are showgoers, right? Who go to every show, most of
Oh,
you
and
here
I
do.
love the show. Let's be clear. I
Right.
love the show. It's great.
But for those that go, right? Could you imagine never having gone to a Vision Expo and managing your job in this industry? Could you imagine never getting that personal connection, seeing the industry up close, seeing the products up close, getting that education? You're working in the dark if you don't have that knowledge, and that's the majority of the industry. I mean, that I haven't done a call cycle like that in a long time. But a lot of people who come here, I ask them, how many physical shows have you been to? And a lot of them haven't been to a big show. So I mean, there are a lot of people out there who still haven't had, especially if they're an employee. If they're an owner, there's a little more of a chance, but most of the employees never go. And we're
No.
talking about those people too. It's not just about the owners, the individuals. I mean, somebody's optician could eventually open an optical shop one day if they had enough courage and knowledge to do
Well,
that.
and connections to do that. Like if you're an independent optician and you want to open an optical shop, and you may not know what you need in order to do that. But if you came to a show like this, you could connect with a lot of different people from around the industry and find that guidance that you were looking for. Much like, 25 years ago when Frank walked into my store and helped me get my life together. It's If you're in the middle of nowhere and you have a very small town and you're not getting a lot of that interaction and you're not going to shows, you're missing all of that information. And physical shows can be inaccessible to people who don't have high budgets or people who can't travel, who can't afford to close their practices. Opticians who don't have the ability to attend those shows are missing those opportunities to advance their career and their education. And you've provided a platform for that.
Let's talk about kindness, because I'll tell you, one of the things I've been proud of since the beginning when we started this show, and it wasn't something I asked people to do, it just happened. And I think it's really because of the people we attracted here. Kindness. Like, I mean, Patricia, you and Mike and your entire DEG team, seriously, shout out to the entire Design Eyewear Group team. Oh my goodness, you guys are incredible. You were
Well,
here, David Green.
yeah.
Real quick, I just want to do a shout out to some of the people who've just really made an investment to be here. You know, Leibach in York. I mean, Dr. Jacobin, Arena, Princess. Seriously, everybody keeps saying, wow, everybody's so helpful here. Like let's just start focusing on doing that more no matter where we are, physically or virtually, because a lot of people need that type of mentorship. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to take that moment to say thank you to everyone.
No, you're absolutely right. And I do also want to take this second to say thank you to the Design Eyewear Group team and the Leibach team, because,
Unbelievable.
they didn't really know what we were doing or what was going on here, but they were like, you're in, I'm in, girl. Let's do this. And
Love that.
there was such a, with the DEG team and the Leibach team, there's such a sense of community and a sense of, how can I help? Yes, of course we want to make money. Yes, we want to sell glasses, but that's not the primary focus, which has always been so refreshing to me. It's how can I help? And I'm seeing a lot of that in this show. And that's kind of the core of who we are. And we touched on it yesterday a little bit, where a lot of people are trying to focus on the positive and stay positive and always be positive. I don't live in that space. I want to know what hurts, because I feel like that's where true connection is made. So I want to know, what are your pain points and what are your stresses and what are your failures, and how can I share my experience with you to help you advance through those spaces, and how can I leverage technology to help you grow? What can I give you? What can I do for you to help you through that pain? But if we sit around and we spend, like Expo, we sit around and we talk about everything is wonderful all the time. Yay, it's not. It's not. Everything is not wonderful all the time. And if we do that, we're missing an opportunity for real human connection, which is what I'm seeing in my teams is that's their focus. Their focus is
Well,
on that connection.
and I think a lot of us work so hard that sometimes at Vision Expo, we try to have a better blend of business and fun. Here you have fun, but it's still you're in that kind of work mode. If it was 5 p.m. at a regular show and we were in New York or Vegas, we would definitely not be sitting here talking about, glasses and eyeballs at 5 p.m. We'd be drinking and eating and hurrahing and all of that. So I will say that this is more of like a retreat style thing where you just don't unplug. But it's 3 days and, it's like a digital download. But I want to go back to what you said about data. So I'm an optician, I'm an optometrist. I have various frames on my board. The more frames I have, the more information I could potentially have. How many people were interested in that one frame? How fast did it move? But more importantly, how do I understand what's going on outside of my optical shop so I can make sure I have the right product to market fit? That's not a word I hear a lot in this industry, but how could potentially organized be help in some of those situations with not just capturing data, but analyzing it?
I think that the more data you have, the better, especially when you run a small business. It is so important. My father-in-law always says, if you watch the pennies, the dollars take care of themselves, right? But that's not what we do as eye care professionals. We don't want to pinch pennies. We don't want to count beans. We want to help people. And the data empowers us to do that. Think about your optician for a second and how talented and how hardworking and how incredible they are as a professional, what an asset they are to your business. Now imagine that same talent sitting in a back room, processing orders all day or trying to get insurance companies to pay out denied claims or counting inventory. What a waste of that talent. What a waste of that opportunity for that person to be building relationships and growing your business. But they can't do that because they have to grow that. They have to understand that data. And the more we leverage technology, the more we have the ability to use that information quickly, efficiently, and accurately to make decisions in our business. Like the simple thing is what to buy. What are we buying? I love purple frames. I love, high dollar products. But if that's not my demographic, it doesn't matter what I like. It doesn't. And if
That's
I
such
don't
a good
know,
point.
if I don't know, how can I make those decisions?
You bring up an incredible point because if you always buy for your own tastes, you're going to miss an opportunity to buy for or for the patients that are currently in your office, because for a lot of offices, their demographic is 40 and over. And this millennial Gen Z audience that we're targeting is 40 and under. And the further you get from 40, the more like it used to be that like it was color, but now it's much more than that. People want like pizzazz. It's a really great time, I think, for independent eyewear brands to embrace this opportunity. But I think independent brands could grow a lot more if they could work with organized to educate their clients on the types of things that people are interested in. And couldn't organized potentially help multiple optical shops if they wanted to like share their like data with each other to see some trends? And
Oh,
I could see
definitely.
that. Have you ever
Definitely.
done that?
One of the coolest things that I've started to find as kind of a byproduct of, what we're doing here is that the access to the information I have gives me so much more power. Like I have an office that is in an area which I thought had a certain demographic. So we put product in based on those numbers and that demographic. But what I found after utilizing that data was that her particular pocket, not even the zip code itself, but just that block where she's at, had a completely different demographic than the rest of the zip code. And when we found that out, now we understand it's not the product. The product is excellent. It's not the staff. The staff is excellent. It's not the doctor. It was the fact that the product she was carrying was targeted to a different audience than who was actually walking through her door. And once we knew that, we were able to switch that product out and get something that was really targeted to her. And it's now her best-selling product. And we wouldn't have known that otherwise. We would have just said, oh, well, this isn't working. I'm sorry, let's part ways. And the power that information gives you is kind of amazing. I had an office that was using Organize, and Dr. Spandiari, who was one of the doctors who helped my husband, I'm a huge fan. And my sister-in-law was going to see him. My sister-in-law has very petite features, and it's very difficult for her to find eyewear that doesn't have cartoon characters on them. And she's a lawyer. She can't go to court with a cartoon character on her face. So when she called and she said, I'm on my way to the doctor, can you meet me? I said, unfortunately, no, I'm in LA today. I can't be there. I apologize. She said was really kind of disappointed because she was looking forward to having something, a personalized experience to help her navigate this situation she's unfamiliar with. And the staff was kind of newer at the time. So what I ended up doing was at a stoplight, honestly, at a stoplight, I pulled up their inventory and I put in the measurements that I knew were going to
You
be
do all your work at stoplights.
I swear, I take college courses at stoplights. I don't.
How long are your stoplights?
My car does a lot of the driving for me, I swear.
I can't even with you now. That's it. Done.
But it was crazy because I was able to then, send this product, potential purchase order to the customer and say, this is what she's going to be coming in at this time. This is what I think is going to really work out well for her. And what would have been a painful experience ended up being a lot of fun for both her and the staff. And they were like, how did you do that? How did you pull that off from a stoplight in Los Angeles in 10, 15 minutes? And it was because I had that data. Without that data, I would not have been able to help that patient, and neither would they.
Well, you used a very important word earlier. And I hope everyone takes this word away. Like, I would write this word down, circle it, put it on a stick-it note, and stick it everywhere you go. And this is efficiency. Now, efficiency is not something that just happens. It's something that you work towards. And if you can eliminate an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours out of a process, that's time that you get back.
That's getting money that you get back.
Imagine getting a refund on your time. They're like, okay, this week it would have cost you 50 hours to do your meetings, but you're going to get 40 hours back. Whoa, what am I going to do with 40 hours? Like, seriously, think about all the time that you would take to go to a traditional show to get the information you got here. Again, you're still going to go, but you're going to use it to get more information. But you wouldn't go to a second show. So if there was a show about general information about the industry where it's all these subjects, and this is more niche and boutique, we're focusing this show on specific subject matter, sustainable fashion and eyewear. This is like really drilling into topics, efficiency, learning about the Web3 audience. This is very tailored content. You would have to make a choice. Am I going to take, 3 days to go to this event or 3 days to go to that event? Normally you wouldn't be able to do both. So the other really great thing about virtual, you're going to see a lot more niche boutique events happening with us. We're going to do a lot of these niche boutique events because some of the subject matter you just have to drill into. There's so much there. So that's where you get this efficiency, is from really having the time to explore things more, because you're saving your time on the menial tasks that you should not be spending your whole work week doing.
Yeah. Well, think about the buyer's experience at an expo, right? So I was a buyer for a long time. I would have to, if I want to buy my Calvin Klein, I'm going to have to go to my Calvin Klein board, and I'm going to have to physically write down every single piece of Calvin Klein that I have. And then I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to fly to Vegas, and I'm going to go and I'm going to sit down with my Calvin Klein rep. And then that inventory that I took 3 days ago is worthless. It's changed. And that's how long did it take me to do that? And now we're going to sit there and my rep's going to go through it and we're going to flip product, where with this type of program, I can just send a message to my staff and say, hey, can you scan the boards for me real quick? And then the actual real time happens right then and there. So I can make sure that, hey, these products are sitting on my shelves right now. They're a little bit old. Can we do an RA? Who does an RA at Vision Expo? Nobody. You can't. You don't have that data. And then you're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, these are the products that are selling and these are the ones that are not selling. So maybe we should focus on our petite ladies. Maybe we should focus on our extended fit men's. The value of that information in real time in that setting now took this, inefficient, tedious, time-consuming process and turned it into something fast and fun. That's what we're doing with data.
Well, I'm going to pivot to something. Teresa Smith just made an amazing comment that I want to share. And before I share it, I want to talk about all of the wins in this comment. And thank you, Teresa. I don't even know you. I can't wait to meet you. So number one, we look for a very specific type of customer for these events. We want to attract everyone, but whenever you're doing marketing in today's day and age, if you want to be efficient, if you want to do community development, which is the new form of marketing, you have to really decide, who is my community member? Who is my audience member? Our audience member is an innovative, leadership-minded eye care professional who really wants to reimagine the way that they're selling eyewear to meet the needs of a more imaginative client. And who better than a mobile optician to attract? Now, I'm going to share this comment with you, because what Teresa said is, now Teresa's from Canada. We're in the United States. Okay. So somehow she found out about us. Shout out to the marketing team, Princess. Okay. And she said, okay, I love that this facilitates a more personal relationship. She's a startup mobile optician. So we're here to talk about startup optical shops. So maybe we could dig into the startup aspect. I know Dr. Jacobin is doing a startup optical as well. And she said she feels like this is a less intimidating environment for a newbie like her. And you know what? Teresa's going to go to her next physical show and she's going to slay it, because she's going to feel confident. And I have a lot of people giving me that feedback after they go to a physical show. They reach out to me and they say, thank you, because I knew people. Like, I wasn't like going, obviously, if you go to a show and you have a rep badge or you have a corporate optometrist badge, but yet you know people, you're not going to have as isolating of a show. But if you don't know anyone, it can be very isolating. So I think these are great places for people that have anxiety, that don't know anyone, that are new, to build those relationships so they can have a less intimidating experience. Thank you for that feedback, Teresa. Let's close the loop on the part of your topic, Patricia, that talks about revolutionizing inventory management for startup optical shops. How do you help with that?
Well, first, we do inventory. Startup optical shops have a hard time with it because traditional practice management software requires you to, have subscriptions that are very expensive, to have expensive software, and to have the manpower to enter those products in one person at a time. When you're a one-man band, that's nearly impossible. It's nearly impossible. And to meet with your reps, especially to be able to focus on brands like David Green, who you might not be able to see in physical space. You might not even know that exists. That's niche product that you didn't have the reach. You can now work directly with David to do those purchase orders on his time and make that happen remotely and make that process very easy so that you have that access without having to wait for somebody to come to you. And you have the ability to control your data and really focus on only the areas of your business that are going to be profitable and that you can just stay very, very, very efficient. And when you're startup and you're brand new, that efficiency and that ability to do things one person instead of 6 people with tens of thousands of dollars, one person with $100 can make this work.
Well, it's funny. Last night in LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is my jam. If you are not in LinkedIn, get in LinkedIn. It's a great place to meet new customers, meet new champions of the industry. You definitely want to embrace LinkedIn. One of the leaders in our industry, David Friedfeld from Clear Vision, he brought up a really good point. He shared an example of a chatbot experience that Warby Parker was providing. And he left with the advice to opticians and optometrists that, you should really study these giants and these very successful companies, and you should mirror what they do. I want to open up that subject with you because I think this is a great opportunity for us to build upon what David said, because I agree with him on one hand and I disagree with him on the other, and I'll tell you both sides, and then I want to hear your thoughts so we can close the conversation on this. It is absolutely great to look at all of your competition and see what they're doing. Place an order with them. See what that experience looks like. I mean, what's it going to cost you? $100 to understand what that invoicing experience looks like and that packaging looks like and what the quality looks like. See what your customers are getting. You got to make these investments to understand how these things are working. You also have to understand who their customer is and who your customer is. First of all, and what their resources are and what your resources are. You might not have the time to build a very expensive, elusive, like really in-depth chatbot experience. However, you might not need to. Your customers might not be, interested in that. We're a Metaverse company, and we put a chatbot on our website, and we found that our bounce rate increased by a lot. People were turned off by that. So
Really?
if you don't, yeah, they don't like when something pops up and just tries to start talking to you. So now we might go back in the future and try introducing it when somebody asks for support, but we weren't seeing enough evidence that it was bringing any value at all that we felt like it was useful. Now, Warby Parker, they need it. They have millions and millions and millions of customers. They're needing that out of millions. If you get 10%, that's hundreds of thousands. That's a good ratio. If you have 50 people coming to your website and all of them hate it, then you've just put it in for, you're not even solving a problem and you're isolating the few people who are coming. So you have to think about conversion. Whenever you think about adding new tools to your website, how is it helping me to convert? How is it helping me to connect? Every buyer has a journey, and there's a lot of dead ends in a lot of buyers' journeys. Buyers have become very smart. They've learned how to build their own bridges over these gaps, but you can stop that. Like, you can learn where your own gaps are and you can bridge that gap. I'm going to give you the last couple minutes here to kind of talk about bridging gaps and customer journeys and all of the things that I just talked about. I'd love to hear your feedback.
Well, first, I love that feedback on the chatbot, because we do have a chatbot on the organized site and I absolutely hate it. My partner just insists on it and I can't stand it. So that's a conversation that we'll be having. But I think that bridging the gap between what big box retailers and what high value and corporations who have all this money behind them are doing, and what, an independent optician, one man show is doing, I think the only way to really compete with them is on quality. I think we can't compete with them on price. There's no way to do that. So we have to focus on the quality of products that we provide, the quality of care that we provide, the attention to detail that they don't have the ability to do.
Right.
That's something that we as independents and as founders and as small business owners, we can pay attention to the details that they will ultimately miss. Like
Right.
Mike's condition. That was a case that was missed by every single, major corporation. They didn't have the tools to deal with him and they didn't want to try. But independents really focused on that, and they changed a life and have that customer for life and those connections for life. And that's where we focus. And in order to do that, in order to spend our time doing that, we have to leverage the technology that's available to us, because it is so accessible and is so affordable. You can reach people in a way that they're not even trying to reach. Like, if you have a patient that's in hospice care and that doesn't have the ability to travel, you can use these virtual try-on features to help them find the products that they want. You can use, your inventory management system to say, oh, this is a product that they're interested in. Can I maybe get a couple of these to try, for patient approval? And now nobody is spending any real dollars, and everybody is getting this very personalized experience that is tailor-made to this customer who would otherwise never have had that opportunity. I think that's where we really focus on bridging the gap between what we're doing and what we're capable of. We can't compete with them. Let's stop trying. Let's focus on what we can control and the things that we do well, and use our software as an opportunity to be more efficient and more effective.
Well, let's think about it. What optical shop could handle 1 million customers? I mean, seriously. And, I learned this in advertising. When I started working with some of my clients in the very beginning, my job, I thought, was to get them as many customers as I could. And I got a lot of them upset because I got them too much traffic, too many phone calls, too many questions, too many, like, they didn't want that. They didn't want chatbots to fix that problem. They didn't want that problem to begin with. A lot of optical shops don't want everybody. They want a very curated audience. So helping offices to understand how to find their audiences and meet them where they are is really important. Thank you, everyone, first of all, for coming in early on your Sunday morning and having these conversations with us, and for showing up. We're going to take a short break and be coming back up with Dr. Irina Yakovin and Dr. Dorothy Hitchmoth. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I'll let you sign us off, Patricia.
All right. And thank you, Dr. Irina, for highlighting how traffic in LA can facilitate the ability to do work at the same time while you're sitting in LA traffic. I appreciate you so much for that. Thank you all so much for listening. I know inventory is not the most interesting topic, but it is very important for us as an industry, because we are wasting money here. I promise. If you're counting frames, if you're doing inventory, you are wasting money, and we're here to help. So thank you all so much for listening.
You have two customers. You have frame vendors that are customers and opticians that are customers. If you could just sign us off with how they could reach you, I want to make sure that they know how to get in touch with you if they'd like to join your amazing program.
And also frame reps, because we carry inventory as well. And it's nice to know what we have, you know. So you can reach us at organize.com. That chatbot, I hate that thing, but it does go to me. So you feel free to connect with me there. You can find me on LinkedIn. There's a phone number at the bottom of the website. You can reach me there as well. Or I'm at Patricia B at organize.com. Or my business partner also has me at Wreck-It Ralph at organize.com.
With or without the W?
With the W, Wreck-It Ralph, because every time I touch the program, I break it.
Oh my goodness. Well, Wreck-It Ralph signing off.
Wreck-It Ralph signing off. Thank you all so much.